Welcome to YardBuzz. YardBuzz is a Robert Jans Media Center production brought to you by the Idaho Department of Correction. Today we have special guest, IDOC Director, Tewalt. Welcome to YardBuzz, fellas. My name is Lawrence.
I'm Kim Wardwell, one of the educators here in the education building.
Today is a very special edition, very special day. We have Director Mr. Tewalt here with us. He's going to talk to us about some things that we hope everyone watching can align with and hopefully agree with. Even if you don't, we're going to explore those things. I've been told that this is an open conversation. There's nothing off limits. There's no rigidity to it. So we're just going to have some fun and see where it goes. And yeah, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir.
I think, first of all, there's a lot of change in the wind. Excuse me. There's a lot of change in the wind, and you were pretty successful this legislative session as far as funding. There's some money, and I know you've got some projects that you're working on. Can you tell us statewide some of the things you're going, because some of our residents may end up moving to other sites, and then also as far as funding for projects here at ISCI?
Yeah, you bet. The legislative session we had, I mean, it's certainly one of the most unusual sessions that I think anybody can remember, but we're in probably the most unusual times anybody can remember, so it's only fitting. But I think we were particularly successful this year in receiving quite a bit of funding for some pretty important investments for the department, particularly investments in staff to try to shore up what has been a generational staffing crisis and a really unique labor market, not just in the world, but especially here in Idaho. So we're excited about that, but we also received some long overdue investment in infrastructure and facilities for the department. And I think that not only is it long overdue, but I think it's going to help expedite a number of the changes that we want to see happen as far as that custodial experience or that incarceration experience for people sentenced to our custody. And so, one of the challenges that we've been dealing with as a system for a long time is, the lack of beds gets a lot of attention. We've relied on out-of-state placement as kind of our overflow for the system, but the bigger issue that we're encountering is a bed composition problem. It's not just that we don't have enough beds, it's that we don't have enough of the right beds. We don't have, I've got about 1,400 gentlemen right now that are minimum custody that are sitting in medium custody beds. And so from a composition standpoint, that's really where we need to do the most work. And that's, the board, we spent a couple years going through different proposals and different options and finally got them. We're able to have a more productive conversation with the board around, like, what are your priorities? What's most important for this system? And it wasn't just capacity. It was making sure that we had the right beds. It was making sure that that when we did build infrastructure, it was going to be purpose-driven space, that it was going to be designed in a manner to help facilitate the kind of objectives or outcomes that we're trying to get from people, not just build the cheapest, most secure facility you can and then try to figure out how to undo the harm that may cause. Let's actually focus on what we want to do first. And as luck would have it, building the right kind of infrastructure is also the cheapest option for the taxpayers. So it's a weird circuitous route of how we're getting to where we're going, and that is to address capacity and bed composition, because I just said we've got an excess of minimum custody guys, so our response is that we're going to build a female facility to address that. So we're going to build an 848 bed female facility between South Boise Women's and Max here in the South Boise complex. But why that's important is you kind of got to go back and look at history a little bit. And as we've added female beds to our system, we haven't added new beds. We've repurposed minimum custody male beds to accommodate that growing population. So building a female facility is going to allow us to reclaim those minimum custody male beds. That means North Dorm and PRC at ISCI going to be minimum custody males again. It means South Boise Women's can be converted to a minimum custody or a CRC for men. And so we're gonna get at the that composition need kind of secondhand, but we're really excited about what that's going to offer for our system. In addition to that, we've got approval to build a 280-bed housing unit here on the ISCI compound. Really excited about what that's going to be. Going to be a 2-story housing unit. Again, being very intentional about the type of space that we're building. Not going to be an open dorm type housing unit. Really going to focus on dignified living opportunities, and the first floor is really designed to be a replacement for the medical annex or the sprung structure, making sure that it's ADA compliant, that we have enough space for those people that have ambulatory needs or medical devices or other things. So making sure it's ADA compliant, that we have appropriate space for people, and then we yet to be determined, but we envision that top floor being more of an honors type unit, or really a living opportunity for people to earn their way into. And we'll talk a little bit later about that earning piece and why that's important to our overall vision. But in addition to that, we'll build that 280-bed housing unit, and then I think the next stage is going to be remodeling that sprung structure, turning it into more appropriate housing, and then remodeling Unit 7 as well. That's Unit 7, there's a lot of symbolism there. It's one of the oldest housing units in the entire correctional system, and it represents a different time in corrections. And so I think for us, being able to give that unit a facelift, do something meaningful in that unit, like the Restoring Promise initiative and some other things, I think just part of a bigger story.
But Josh, what does that exactly mean? Can you interpret that into more concrete terms for residents? What are they going to see as far as Unit 7? It's going to be more than just a facelift. You're changing the guts of it.
Yeah.
How is that going to change?
Yeah, we're gonna reduce population density first and foremost in that unit. I mean, that unit has been under population caps for years, because the courts have determined, rightfully so, that those conditions of confinement are just not appropriate. So the first step is to depopulate that unit. That's and for those who have been there, and I'm sure a lot of people have been there, you got those 2-man cells, the bar doors, and really small place, really small living space. So it's depopulate that. Those are going to be single beds. Changing the structure of the units to provide more day room programming space, changing the atmosphere to have more natural lighting, to have just better environment and vibe to it, changing the acoustics.
It won't be freezing during winter?
No. Well, you won't be able to hang meat in there, but no, but I mean that just from a big picture perspective. I mean, I think you ask anybody, most people would agree environment matters, and if we believe that environment matters, then we got some work to do to make sure that we're creating an environment that helps facilitate the types of outcomes we need to achieve to keep Idaho safe. And if we're not, then what the hell are we doing? So we're excited about that.
A lot of the benefits that are going to come from the Restoring Promise are geared for people that are 25 and under, but they're going to have a number of programs that we're going to have residents would be interested in doing, those that are over that age. And so this is the first I've heard of an honors unit tied in with the annex. And so what kind of things do you envision that a person that stays DOR free, as far as I assume that's for honors, would be to keep your record clean? What kind of benefits could they get? What do you think that facility will have?
All right, you just opened a can of worms. So we're gonna we're gonna back up because I think that that what you're going to see is quite a bit of change geared towards how we reward and how we punish. And I think that's just how corrections is conditioned. We view good behavior as being DOR free.
Yep.
And that's the absence of bad behavior, right? So part of what we're trying to do, and this I think gets really high level, and we'll kind of start there, is we'll just talk like public safety from a big picture perspective. That like, just for a long time, society has viewed public safety as our ability to respond quickly and apprehend people who have done wrong. Like, and then we're going to punish them. We've had various philosophies about that. You know, if we can just make prisons so hard, people won't want to come back. Like, that'll do it. That's gonna change their behavior. And, like,
And if we can keep them here forever, so the public doesn't have to worry.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. You know, it doesn't work, and we know that, and we're still writing checks for those failed policies, and so you know a lot of what we're trying to do really starts with changing the perception of public safety, and it's helping people understand like there's a role for accountability. There has to be. We always have to have consequences to actions. But the real public safety is when people who would otherwise be involved in our system are able to live crime-free in our communities. They're able to contribute. They're able to work. They're able to raise their families. They're able to do the types of things that we all enjoy as a free people. And so it's like, if that's what we believe real public safety is, then let's start there and reverse engineer what needs to happen to get that. And if you do that, it looks a hell of a lot different than the way we've historically done corrections and the way we've historically done criminal justice. So that's kind of the overarching philosophy. But when you drill a little bit deeper and you get into being DOR free and things like that, it's the irony behind how we've traditionally structured correctional environments is that most people find their way in our custody because they made bad decisions. And our response to that is to bring them into an environment where we let them make one. And that's whether or not they comply. And we're going to tell them when to get up. We're going to tell them when chow is. We're going to tell them what classes they're going to do. We're going to tell them all these things. And then we're going to measure their ability to do what they're told. And then when they're done, when they've satisfied their sentence or they've checked enough boxes for us, we're going to send them outside these gates and say, all right, now make better decisions. Well, no. Like, our responsibility, if we genuinely believe that people can change, and we do, is to provide meaningful opportunities for decision making while they're here, while they're between our fences. Like, that's how you teach people to make better decisions. That means creating an environment where people can affirmatively make decisions and then feel the rewards or consequences of those actions. Not get in trouble. Mm-hmm. Not just don't screw up or just don't get caught, but actually making decisions, choosing to be a part of education, choosing to work, choosing to do things to better themselves. Those are things that I think when you look at how we're going to operate going forward, we're really, simultaneously, while we have all these other things going on, we're really trying to work on our systems. Like, how do we classify risk? Is it, crime type, criminal history, proximity to release, institutional behavior, which is the lack of DORs? Mm-hmm. So, like, what do we reward then? Are we rewarding somebody's ability to get older and get another year closer to release, and now suddenly they pose less risk? Or are we actually looking at the behavior that they're demonstrating every day, the decisions that we are allowing them to make, and then allowing them to feel either the rewards or the consequences for those? Like, I want, when I talk about an honors unit or privileges, those shouldn't be tied to classification. Those should be tied to actual behavior and people making choices to do the right things or to better themselves or to otherwise learn, grow, and try to evolve as human beings. Like, those are the things we need as a system to get better at rewarding. And so on restoring promise, I know there are a lot of people that look at restoring promise as, it's not about me, it's only going to benefit young man 18 to 25, whatever that age range is. And like, man, it's a lot bigger than that. Like, we're piloting a lot of different programs and initiatives throughout our entire system, and the intent is for us to learn. You know, the cool thing about Restoring Promise is that it's not a program, it's a process. And what's going to apply to everybody in our care and custody is what we learn through that process. Yeah, it's focused on 18 to 25-year-olds, but like, we care about how it's going to make us better as a system. We know we're going to be, you know, as part of this new female facility that we're working on, that we're going to build. Like, we're going to try some new things, and it's because we can start small and we can learn, and then we can scale on the things that do work. And so that really, you know, Restoring Promise isn't a program, it's not an endpoint. It's a process that we're going through where we're going to learn, where our residents who are involved are going to learn. And together, I think we can chart a different experience for the people in our custody and the staff who work here. Because that, real quick, because I do think it's worth noting, because it's always a what's in it for me or what's in it for them sort of deal. And it's like, yeah, you know, you all live here.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to say. It's a what's in it for us type of deal as a collective.
Yeah,
both sides of the fence.
Yeah, I mean, you all live here, and if we believe environment matters, does it only matter 24 hours a day, or does it matter 12 or 16 hours a day? Mm-hmm. You know, because there are reasons why, you know, correctional staff, you know, suffer clinical symptoms of PTSD at rates higher than returning combat veterans. Mm-hmm. Wow. There's a reason why the life expectancy of a correctional officer is shorter than the community average. There's a reason we have the highest rates of suicide for any occupation in correctional staff. Like, and it's not just because, it's not just the, you know, what they witness, what they experience, what they see. It's the environment that they work in every day. And so, you know, I really do think it's important to keep a higher level of what we're trying to do, because it's not, you know, we do something that benefits the resident population, and that reduces violence, that reduces, you know, reduces trauma, it reduces other impacts. Like, well, and it's not just the residents.
Those same statistics can be applicable to the guys that live here as well. So if those rates, you know what I mean, are that high for staff who are in the community, so eventually the majority of us will be returning citizens to the community. So what does that say about our statistics? And so if the department is taking different measures to progress and move forward and get out of that frame of thought, I think that works in the benefit for everyone, and not just for staff or for keeping the community safe. And you touched on something about classification, and I think that that is something that a lot of us are kind of pondering. Like, there's a really old system of classification, and you pretty much hit on it when you mentioned that we're rewarding guys for getting older. And to some guys, it doesn't seem as though there is any benefit to the current classification system. So on behalf of the Yard and the fellas on the Yard, I would like to ask, do you see anything that can potentially change as far as the way classification is structured in that point system? And what I mean by that is maybe a reduction of points for a number of reasons other than just getting older or staying DOR free, because there are many things that, you know.
Yeah, I'll just stop you. Okay. And the answer is yes. Okay. And where I think you're going to see the shift in classification and is a heavier emphasis on what your needs are, and a deprioritization of the static factors. Like, you can't change your criminal history, you can't change your crime type, you can't change the sentence that you were given. But just from if you just take an evidence and research based approach to the reduction of criminogenic need, right? Like, not to sound like nerdy and wonky or anything like that, but like we don't have to make this stuff up. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't have to pull this out of our ass and go, let's see if it works. No, like there's a body of literature out there that says, hey, if you're going to really try to affect the future for people and affect crime, focus on their needs. Mm-hmm. Focus on on the things that can change.
Agreed.
And so what you're going to see.
What does that look like though? Because
Well, that looks like evaluating our programming differently. If you come in and you've just say you're here for 3 to 5 years, something like that. I'm just going to throw that out there, and through that assessment process, you're relatively low need. You're low risk. Like it doesn't make sense for us to put you through like a battery of programs, things like that. But what are those areas of your life that need improvement? Is it financial security? Is it, are there, we do an LSIR, we're looking at 10 domains in somebody's life. Like, are we willing to provide interventions for all 10 of those domains?
Sure.
Or just a couple that we think are popular to do? So it means that, de-emphasizing for some people for whom the risk profile doesn't work, de-emphasizing some of the core programs and prioritizing education, prioritizing vocational training, prioritizing employment and other opportunities. Like those are, but that's a wholesale change from the way that we do classification. But that's, I think, what you're going to see, and we're in the process. Our research folks are, not only looking at the way other systems classify risk, but also looking at, we're looking at actual public safety outcomes and going like, well, trying to see what we can learn from that, to go, is there a better way to really calculate, to be able to translate institutional risk to meaningful public safety outcomes out in the community.
So I hesitate to ask because I know that there's a separate entity for corrections and the commission. However,
Now, by
the way
commission,
the
you mean parole?
yes,
Parole commission.
parole commission.
Okay.
So the only reason I bring up the parole commission is because you touched on programs and classification needs fits into those programming. So if you have a guy, like you said, doing 3 to 5, then he's at the top-notch list to receive whatever is available, right? Whatever those check marks are. But if you have a guy who's not coming up for quite some time, he's not eligible, and he just sits here, and those opportunities and those programs aren't available to him simply because the makeup of his sentence.
Yep.
So how does a guy in that lane put himself in a position to win?
Capacity. It's a capacity issue, and that's one of our that's one of the things that we're really focused on right now. So to create that environment where we're infusing decision making into it, we gotta have decisions for people to make. If you want to go to class and you can't get in one, are we going to punish you for that? Are we not going to have, no. So that means we have to create the capacity for decision making. That means we have to increase the opportunities that people have, that they can affirmatively choose to participate in. And you're going to see, you're going to see a lot of that coming.
So let me jump in at this point. So putting it in blunt terms, when you say capacity, you're talking about like bringing more program managers or case managers in that can actually teach the programming and things like that. So you're talking about staff increases, or?
Yeah, part of it's human capital, but part of it's the way we view the world, right? I mean, there's this thing out there called the interwebs or the internet. No, but there's, that's one of the things that we learned through the pandemic, that it would be a mistake to discount is, there are, I love personal contact. I love the face-to-face aspect. But there are so many opportunities for technology to interface with what we do that creates additional opportunities. It creates capacity. It means that you can be here at the Yard, but there's a really cool class or something being taught over at ISCC. Why can't you remote in? Why can't, there are so many opportunities that we have that we've just historically discounted because they were hard for us. Not because they don't make sense from a programmatic standpoint, but they're hard for us to do. How do we let people have access to the internet? How do we utilize now, the Pell Grants are going to be available. There are these wholesale changes coming down the road.
Pell Grants is funding for college. It's paying the tuition for you to do the college. That's coming down the road.
Yeah. So like it's not just a human capital piece. Like that's a part of it, but I think you change capacity by taking advantage of all the advances in technology that are out there. And we've put a lot of money in the last couple of years into infrastructure, into high-speed broadband, and we still got a lot of work to do to be able to figure out how to effectively get coverage throughout all of our institutions and things like that. We've got tablet technology. We've got a lot of stuff but now it's like, okay, let's figure out how do we tie this together intentionally and strategically that we can maximize the opportunities for people. And the other piece of that too is on the employment front. It's not just cleaning and janitorial work and things like that. We've got the best relationship with correctional industries that we've ever had, and so we're looking at expanded opportunities for ICI. That's going to mean it's going to increase competition for jobs, and it's going to change the labor market inside our institutions. It's going to make us have to be more competitive, if we want people to do institutional jobs, because now there are going to be a lot of other, we're going to move into call center work. They're expanding other opportunities through ICI, and so like that kind of competition, I think, it lends itself to creating capacity for decision making. Also, is going to make us a little bit better and providing more real life opportunities and experiences for people in here.
So Josh, if I can be blunt with you in terms of what you're talking about are a lot of things that are going to be available. If the residents watching this are saying, well, what's in it for me? You are talking at a very general level, and sometimes when you're talking, I'm putting specifics in my mind as to what you talk about. I don't know that the residents are always doing that. I'd like to throw a number of specifics as far as what you're covering, but bring up the specific part, and I'd like to, if I could, just in a 5-second clip to answer what kind of timeline do we see certain things? So, like, what timeline do you have for Unit 7 being refurbished?
Yeah, don't know on Unit 7 yet.
But are we talking months, years?
Hopefully months. Okay. Potentially years. Yeah. The challenge that we have, and you try containing me to 5 seconds, man.
I tried.
It's just, not happening. The problem that we have is we've got so many airplanes circling the airport.
Right.
And you got to try to figure out in what order do we land them, because we aren't the only infrastructure projects that got approved.
Right.
I mean, there are billions of dollars worth of projects out there, and so we're trying to move to the front of the line as fast as we can, but we also got to figure out, like, from a strategic standpoint, do we, because I want to get everybody back here from Arizona. I mean, I want to get out of the business of out-of-state placement, and so you're trying to keep that decision in mind as well. Like, do we take Unit 7 completely off the table while we remodel it? Does that affect timelines for bringing folks back from Arizona? Do we need to build the 280-bed housing unit first? Those are the kind of things. I don't think we will. I think we're going to be able to move Unit 7 up to the front of the timeline, but those are the things I just don't have concrete answers for yet.
When we talk about college, and we really haven't gotten into that, but you mentioned Pell Grants. What kind of timeline? Because I know you and I know Dodds Hayden have been real strong advocates for this, for us moving into trying to figure out how we can provide college. And while we've had some experiments of single classes, I know you want to be able to have complete programs where people can go 2 years for an AA or 4 years for a BA. What kind of timelines with Pell Grants are we looking at?
Pell Grants, I think, become available in 23.
Okay, so
yep.
So that is within sight.
Yep.
When you talk about freeing up space with the women, how long will that trickle down as far as what it'll free up for the men?
Probably going to be looking at 24 to 36 months.
Okay.
And from a construction timeline, we've got a couple. We've got a couple other expansion projects that are ongoing right now, like St. Anthony, we've got 140 beds coming online. Going to get East Dorm back up and going next fall.
For some of you that are looking, getting close to paroling out, wanting to go to the work camps, even though it's not done here, you're providing a lot of opportunities for those minimum security. In terms of an honors unit, similar along the lines of restoring promise, but for the older people, what kind of timelines do you think we're looking at?
Well, it'll be tied to that housing unit specifically. I think you're seeing pockets of innovation and progress, I would call it, at a lot of institutions right now, of people looking at like, all right, how can we reward, how can we create incentives, how can we do those sorts of things? So you're seeing it up in Orofino, you're seeing it at a lot of facilities right now. So, you know, if you're talking about like a specific, you know, honors unit here or something along those lines, like, well, we'll just have to work on Warden Davis and ask him when that's going to happen.
I think you've got an exciting vision, but of course watching IDOC's notorious for how long it takes to get things going. I know that you had to share that vision with the legislature and the governor to get them on board. One of the things I hear from inmates is, well, we hear all this talk from downtown that of a relationship that's more sense of advocacy, that they advocate for us, but then we go to the unit and it's like same old, same old. How long and how do you see that vision being instilled throughout the whole system of IDOC?
I don't think you ever stop. I mean, what you're talking about is wholesale cultural change. Like that's not a process that stops. You're going to see, I think, an escalation of, I think, people feeling the impacts of that through the staffing crisis, candidly. And, you know, because not only are we investing differently and being a little more thoughtful about how we recruit, we're putting an equal amount of resource into how do we retain people. Now, it doesn't do us any good to bring 1,000 new staff in and have 950 of them walk out the back door. So, you know, it's how are we attracting the right people? Are we attracting people who are drawn to the work for the right reason? And then how are we keeping them? And so we've got a, you know, Chad Page has been working on the Purpose Initiative, and I think we've learned a lot through that process of, you know, what's motivating staff, what's driving them, where we need to be better in leadership.
For the residents, that's translated in as a staff member where we fill out surveys, where we give feedback so that downtown knows what to focus on. And you've done a lot of effort in that area.
A lot of effort in that area, but now we're bringing in some third-party expertise to help us put all the pieces together, because it's not just, you know, telling people, hey, we want you to do things for the right reason. It's not just affecting policy. It's how have you connected all those dots to training? How have you connected all those dots through performance management? Are we measuring the right things? Are we rewarding the right things in staff? Are we, you know, how are we baking that into promotional opportunities and how we screen candidates for promotions? Are we, you know, well, yeah, I mean, there's a bigger picture to all that. So I think that's like where you're going to see an increase in where I think residents are going to feel it when we can have a healthier staffing levels, et cetera. But I think you're also going to see it in promotions. You're going to see it in how supervisors interact with their staff. And that kind of communication that's going back and forth. So
I think that provides a little bit of insight for you to say that you've hired a third party to help. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think a lot of guys might feel like, oh, it's always been this way, and so that's the way it's just going to be. So for me, at least, to hear you say that provides a bit of insight from my perspective, because not all of us have the answers all the time. So
I seldom have the answers, and that's part of, you know, the kind of the overarching philosophy that I have, and I know staff are probably tired of hearing it, but our job is to get it right, not be right.
Mm-hmm.
Wearing a badge doesn't make you right. You
I
know,
agree.
it's what is the right thing to do, and how are we as an agency doing that? And I don't think you get there if you can't wear the things that we're getting wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, a lot of this is, you know, there are certainly areas where we're experts, and we have the expertise, we have the talent, unquestionably. But there are a lot of areas where we don't, and if our response is to just try to fake it till we make it, we're not gonna get better as
So
an
if the
agency.
common goal is to get it right on both sides of the fence, from a central office standpoint, local staff standpoint, and resident standpoint, all of us want to be out. I think that's the one thing, as my peers at least, the one thing we all have in common is that we don't want to be here. We all want to go home. So if the common goal is that, right, from all parties involved, how do we help each other? How do we increase that resolve and promote what's necessary to make that happen?
Yeah. I think being able to see a bigger picture, and part of that's on us to help communicate that, but I think it's incumbent on everybody in our system. You got to see a bigger picture.
I agree.
Like as much as I hate to admit it, the world's a hell of a lot bigger than Josh Tewalt. It's a lot bigger than Lawrence Weed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but when you're here, when you feel like you have no control over anything else, and that it allows you to believe that you're a product of everything that's happened to you,
Mm-hmm.
and lose sight of the ability you have to happen to things,
Mm-hmm.
and to, you know, kind of be the architect of your own destiny. And so I think when people can see a bigger picture, when they can understand, you know, where they fit in it, when they, you know, I think it allows people to have hope. It allows people, you know, nothing binds anxiety like action. So if I understand, if I feel like I'm helpless, if I, you know, and candidly, that's one of the, you know, one of the things we're really trying to change about corrections is just that mindset of like.
So what do you say to guys that listen, right? They're hearing you right now. Guys are watching this and they're listening and they're going, okay, I like what this guy's saying. A lot of this makes sense. A lot of this resonates with me. I want to see this happen. But there's a disconnect. They walk out of their cells after this episode goes off, and there's a huge disconnect between what you're saying and what's taking place upper and then down here. What do you say to those guys?
Well, I say focus on what they control. Focus on what they control.
Mm-hmm.
And they control their part in those interactions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I will. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I know what it's like on the units. I'm not going to pretend like that's the world I have to live in. But I also know, like, there are a hell of a lot of people that work for the Department of Correction that genuinely care.
I agree.
They genuinely care.
I
And you know, the other thing that I just never appreciated it as much as I learned through the pandemic was just how many times I needed people to extend me grace.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm in the middle of something. I got, you know, somebody's mom is, you know, crawling up one side of me and down the other, and you know, what she may not know is, you know, that my dad just passed away from COVID. You know, and like, we all got stuff we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, wearing a badge, coming through that front sally port every day doesn't make you immune from dealing with the anxieties and the pressure and the uncertainty that's going on in this world right now. And so,
Sure.
like, I think, you know, number one is you can't define an entire agency by your interaction with a handful of people in the same way you damn sure don't want us defining this population by the actions of a handful of people.
Agreed.
That goes both ways.
Agreed.
And so what I would encourage people to do is focus on what they control, and what they control is their role in that interaction,
Mm-hmm.
their role in the type of energy they're bringing into the space they occupy every single day. That's what you control, and that's where I think they should be spending their time.
So, Lawrence, before we wrap this up, do you have any final question for Josh?
Well, I have a lot, but
Well, let's do it again.
We'll have to bring him back.
Put me in, Coach.
all right. Well, it was a pleasure having you. I appreciate it. I really do. And
So let's ask Josh if he has any final things that he wants to say as far as what we didn't ask.
Oh, you don't want to turn it over to me like that. We'll never get out of here. Yeah,
Well, we'll
I'd
give
have
you
to call in for lunch or
We'll
something.
give you 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's just not going to work. No, I genuinely appreciate the opportunity.
All right.
Like,
Well,
these kind of things are fun.
then I have one final last question, and that is, Josh, out of all of the exclusive gated communities here in IDOC, why is it that ISCI is your favorite?
Yeah, it is. It's in my top 9. Handily.
We've moved up a notch.
Yeah, no, really. No, in all fairness, and every facility is unique. Every facility has its own culture. This facility, I think, is one of the more challenging, because I don't think you'll find the same diversity in population type. I don't think you'll find the volume of moving parts of everything that runs through, from RDU to the medical to the BHU to statewide transport, to all the pieces that run under this umbrella here at ISCI. It just makes it one of I think the most unique facilities in our state. But I also think it makes it one of the most important, because I think people coming in, everybody who's coming into our system comes through here. They're coming in through Unit 15, and I think that's where I think you're going to see more focus in a really short amount of time, is looking at strengthening the mentorship programs, those types of opportunities here, because we want to make sure people coming into Unit 15 understand that there are a lot of different ways they can do their time, and they have a role in that, and we want people that can help guide them in the right direction to be a part of that initial experience. So, I know you're teasing, but from a strategic standpoint, from my job, I don't think there's a facility more important to the correction system than what ISCI brings to the table with RDU. One
final thought.
Yes.
Are you worried at all as to what we're going to put on the screen behind you while you're talking?
I was worried at what you were going to put on the green screen, and then I remembered I have this vision of the org chart in my head, and I remembered where I sit on that org chart, and it's above your warden, and I was sitting there going, that would just be so foolish for Kim to do that.
Well, you also remembered that I'm the editor and I want to go home.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Lawrence, he's got something to lose.
Yeah,
I'm like, nah.
Lawrence doesn't do crickets with you.
No.
He only does crickets with me.
Kim's a loose cannon. Yeah.
Well, it's been a real privilege to have you here, Josh, and we really appreciate you taking time
Thanks,
for
man.
it.
Thank you.
Yep. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you for watching, fellas. We'll see you next time.